Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over an upcoming potential winter storm for parts of the northern plains and the upper Great Lakes. We're going to be going over where the heaviest snow might set up and also how much snowfall you could be seeing. This is still about 3 to 5 days out from this event, so we will be covering what is currently expected, but expect this to change, and we'll be updating you guys on any new information that we do get. We're going to have some rather chilly air actually behind the system for parts of the northern plains and back through the Rockies, but you'll definitely have some warmer temperatures out ahead of the storm and to the south of it. So those of you who are to the south of the storm will actually be feeling rather warm and rather nice and pleasant while the storm is going on further to your north. So here's what the current watches and warnings look like from the National Weather Service page. We have some red flag warnings in effect for parts of the central and northern plains in that pink color, and then in the gray color we have some air quality alerts, I believe, in effect for those areas in parts of South Dakota and North Dakota. We have some wind advisories in effect for parts of Utah, Nevada, and California, as well as some frost and freeze warnings for parts of California. Northwestern California is where those are currently posted. We also have some flood warnings around the Mississippi River and then back up through the Ohio River, and that's where you still have a bit of flooding from that event that occurred about a couple weeks ago, and actually just a few days ago, where they had several inches of rainfall, and unfortunately they still have some rainfall and flooding issues in those areas, although it is drying out, so hopefully they are recovering from that event. Your high temperature yesterday in the continental United States was recorded in Kingsville, Texas, which is in southern Texas, away from the coast just a little bit, and that creates the prime environment for some very warm temperatures. They got to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low temperature for the continental United States was in Peter Sinks, Utah, negative 21 degrees there. That's in a higher elevation in north central Utah, where they typically are one of the coldest spots in the continental United States, and yesterday they got to negative 21. The highest precipitation or rainfall report was in Olympic National Forest, Washington, where they got 2.88 inches of rainfall in those areas, and that's located in western and northwestern Washington. And then the highest snowfall report was 2 miles northwest of Woodland Park, Colorado, where they got 8.5 inches of snowfall. That's right in the Denver foothills, right just to the south and west of Denver, in some of those higher elevations where they got quite a bit of snowfall yesterday. So here's an interesting map to look at. This is the snowiest month on average from 1981 to 2010 over the entire United States. They took a bunch of locations that report their snowfall and then kind of averaged it out onto a map, and this is credited from the Weather Channel. They actually made this graphic, but I think it's a really good graphic to understand where and why the heaviest snowfall actually occurs in March and April for some of these areas in the northern plains, and it's mainly because in January and February, when most of the United States, you can see much of the United States, I would say over 60% of the United States sees their snowiest months in January or February, but not the northern plains. They're snowiest in December or March and April for the most part in those areas. So you can see that mainly that's happening because in January and February, it's one of the coldest months, and in the northern plains, you don't need cold necessarily to create snowstorms. They're already typically cold enough. So when it's colder, that jet stream is further to the south, and they're actually fairly dry throughout January and February. So of course, they don't see any snow if there isn't any storms moving throughout their area. So they're rather dry. So in January, they're really not seeing too much snow. January, February, really not seeing too much snow. But it's back when the track of the storms starts to shift further north into the springtime that they start to get hit with these storms, and most of the storms actually do end up becoming a mix of rain and snow. They got quite a bit of snow in March as well, and also this is the same for December, but just kind of the opposite. December and November are also quite snowy for these areas. And that's again because the jet stream is a little bit further to the north, so they get stuck in that storm track, and they actually have a little bit. They're a little bit colder than 32 degrees in most instances, and they're able to get some snowfall. So you can see from South Dakota, Nebraska, back through Wyoming, Montana, and some of the Rockies there. That's where their snowiest months are in March and April, not in January or February like much of the United States, but rather again March and April. So the spring months can actually be quite snowy for those areas. Now, here's what the European model is showing, and this is a good example of why this is one of their snowiest months. It's because we're seeing multiple storms just like this, where they kind of scoot away through the northern plains, bring a little bit of snow and ice and wintry precipitation, and that's what's going to, over time, add up to quite a bit of snowfall. So you can see that we have a mix of rain and snow back through parts of South Dakota, Nebraska, and into Wyoming there. We have your surface low pressure down here with a bit of cold air reserved further to the north, but this is really not going to have too much cold air to really support it. And the European model is a lot less aggressive with this storm. The GFS, which we're going to show you, has a lot more snowfall over a more widespread area than what the European model is showing. You can see that by Wednesday morning, we're looking at more of that snow back through Wyoming, Nebraska, and South Dakota, and then you can see it's actually rain for much of these areas through parts of the northern plains. By the way, your 32-degree line is all the way up here in Manitoba, Saskatchewan. It's anywhere north of this line is where the 32-degree line is. So most of these areas are actually 35, 36, 37, 38 degrees, so it's not really cold enough for any snow in those areas just yet. You have your low pressure, which is down in Kansas by this point still, and that's going to continue to scoot away further to the east, but your snow is going to have to be reserved further west as you're a bit colder in some of the slightly elevated terrain of South Dakota, Wyoming, western Nebraska, as you get a little bit of elevation, and that's where you're going to get some of your heaviest snowfall, at least to start. Then this transitions to a bit of a colder system, and the only areas that could see snowfall by this point are northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. So shifting it over to the Great Lakes, that low pressure is all the way up in northern Wisconsin by this point. So this is a very far north track of the system, and that's going to continue to move further to the north and to the east. You can see heavy snowfall, though, for parts of the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, parts of northern Minnesota. So if you do get into the snowfall, you're going to see a lot of it in a very short amount of time. It's just a matter of who actually gets into the snowfall because of how far north the system is, how much of a lack of cold air there is. By the way, this snowstorm is happening while these areas are 10 to 15 degrees above normal in temperature, so they definitely are not seeing any sort of cold temperatures with this event. Even when they're 10 to 15 degrees above normal, they can still see snowfall in some of these areas, and that's what makes spring one of the snowiest months in these areas, and snowy seasons in these areas. And then through Thursday morning and into the afternoon of Thursday is when this storm starts to depart. It's a very wrapped up low pressure back through into parts of Ontario and Quebec, Canada, but you can see it was a very far north track with the European. You didn't really see too much in the way of snow unless you lived in some of those areas in Wisconsin, the northern UP of Michigan, even into northern Minnesota. Now, here's what we see on the GFS model, a little bit different. You can see that it's actually further north than what the European model was showing, which means that you're going to have a stronger system. You also have more cold air in place. You can see that cold air really is a lot further to the south. So we still have a decent amount of cold air, a lot more than what the European model had. So what you're going to see is that the system actually takes a little bit more of a northern track, but you can see that the snow is set up over a larger area here, from South Dakota all the way up to parts of Manitoba, Canada. So you can see that low pressure moves all the way up into northern Wisconsin. Again, either way, this is tracking very far to the north, and anywhere south of there, you're going to be enjoying pleasant temperatures up through the 60s, even some 70s further to the south. So enjoy those warm temperatures if you're not stuck within this rain snow mess for the northern plains and the Great Lakes. You can see that snow setting up for parts of Minnesota, northwestern Wisconsin, and the western UP of Michigan. Now, what's happening with the GFS model is that instead of what the European model is doing, which is basically bring this low pressure slowly and gradually bringing this further to the north, the GFS model, which I'll do in blue, is actually taking this low pressure, starts it out right here, and then pushes it straight up to the north. So on that, if that happens, you're going to have a lot of warm air that's pulled up out ahead of this, but you're also going to have a lot of cold air that's pulled on the western side of this. So you're seeing more cold air being pulled in on the back side of the storm, and that's why you're seeing a lot of snowfall in areas further west. But then you go up to the UP of Michigan, parts of even into Ontario, Canada, even into central and even parts of northern Ontario, they're dealing with rain, while areas in southern Minnesota and eastern South Dakota are dealing with snow. It's all because of how this is oriented. The eastern side of the storm is naturally going to be the warmer side of the system, and then the system heads out probably by Thursday morning, late on Wednesday, Thursday morning. That's when this is starting to head out. Now, here's what the snowfall totals look like, and you can see that we really have not a lot going on in terms of snow. You can see a stripe of 6+ inches, 6 to 10 inches in those areas in the purple, but you can see how narrow that band is, and that's going to be a real forecast challenge if this is how it actually plays out. But also look back through South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming. We're dealing with maybe amounts closer to 10 to 15 inches of snowfall, especially in some of the Black Hills of western South Dakota there, and some of those highly elevated or slightly elevated areas there. And then here's what the GFS is showing, and you can see it's a much more, it's a wider area, but you're not dealing with as concentrated heavy snowfall. So you can see that instead of some of these areas seeing 10+ inches, there's a wider area that's seeing 2 to 5 inches of snowfall back through Minnesota, northwestern most Wisconsin, a little bit of South Dakota, and then on the other side of South Dakota back through Wyoming and Nebraska, you also have some of those higher amounts back through there. So there's really two different options here, and we really don't have too many models picking kind of something in between. So we have two models that all of the models are kind of veering towards one of the two solutions. We're going to have to figure out which one is actually going to be more correct. Here's what the Weather Prediction Center is showing for the chance of seeing 2 to 3 inches of snowfall within this time period, which would be from Wednesday through Thursday. They have about a 10 to 30% chance back through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan. This means that they're at least paying attention to the system and that they think there is a threat that does happen, and they'll probably upgrade those numbers as time goes on. So here's what the snowfall probabilities are, and this is showing you the chance that the precipitation type at this particular moment, which in this case we're looking at a map from Wednesday in the morning. This would be the chance that the precipitation type within whatever area, within that specific area, is snowfall. So you can see that this is the GFS ensemble model, so it's taking an average of about 20 to 30 models and seeing how many models actually showed snowfall in those areas. And as we play this forward, you can see that the highest chances are going to be further to the north, up through here. And I'm going to keep this highlighted area up because you're going to see that most of the highest chances of being in a snow precipitation type is going to be stuck between that area. So you get further to the south and those chances greatly decrease because we don't have really any supply of cold air. All the cold air is stuck back through western Canada, Alaska, western areas west of the Rocky Mountains. So we're not dealing with any cold air that's stuck in central Canada that's supplying a little bit of colder and chillier air into the northern plains. We really don't have any of that. We're using what cold air is already around, and that's what's gonna fuel the system. We don't have any source of cold air there, and then you're going to see that by Thursday morning, those chances are closer to 80-90% up through Minnesota, but you get a little bit further south of there, they're down to 30-35%. So I think this is a great tool to figure out how likely it is that you're actually going to see that snow precipitation type, especially in these rain snow situations. It can show you kind of where most of the models are agreeing that the heaviest snowfall will set up, or where it's most likely to set up at least, and then that pulls away to the north, of course, by Thursday in the morning time into maybe even the late morning time. And it's pretty much said and done with by that point. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.